Day 7 of the Radio Free Skaro Fluid Links Advent Calendar. Today's question comes from Ottawa Tom. Here we go. Okay. Harlan Ellison created the Star Lost. Harlan Ellison liked Doctor Who. Give me your best pitch for the Star Lost / Doctor Who crossover and how much Harlan would have hated it.
Harlan Ellison also wrote that introduction on the one pinnacle novelization.
He did, didn't he?
He absolutely did.
Okay, so a very brief history. Star Lost was a show that Harlan Ellison and others tried to pitch to big companies back in the early 70s to make as a TV show. That pitch eventually had to get whittled down to be cheaper and worse every time until it was finally made in a cheap Toronto-based TV studio by Glenn Larson Productions. It is the worst and thus best science fiction show ever made.
I've seen every episode.
All the episodes are on my YouTube channel. Watch and adore. So that's and thus it's fascinating. I think there's maybe we need to be the people who make the documentary on why the Star Lost became the way it was. But so there's your ground. There's your intro. Cross that. Even cheaper looking Doctor Who with Doctor Who, and what would we come up with?
Was it set on spaceships? Is it a space
it's
station?
set on an arc, and each week you go to a different pod, and that's how they have different stories because different stuff's happening in these pods. They're isolated from one another. It's a great idea that doesn't actually pan out in terms of production.
No, because they didn't know how to make the show in this Toronto TV studio because it was made by basically people who made like soap operas and stuff. And so there is random music just playing throughout all parts of the episode as if it was a cheap soap opera. It's made on multicam video, which should be a benefit for people like us weaned on classic Doctor Who, but it's not. Stars Keir Dullea from 2001. But also it stars a guy who made most of his career by doing the weather on local Toronto news.
Is there any more Canadian story than that? No,
I don't think so. And then they would fly in occasional like big name quote unquote guest stars like Walter Koenig and like Ed Amos and stuff like that. And this
and John Colicos is in it.
John Colicos, and this would be the big hook and stuff. So honestly, it feels like a low budget version of low budget 1970s Doctor Who, which is both perfect and terrible at the same time. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the Aristocrats. That's the Star Lost.
Okay, so Harlan Ellison hates everything.
He does.
Anyway. So it's an arc with different types of pods. What kind of pod would he really, really hate?
I mean, there are a lot of different ones in the 17 different episodes. So
that's true. What kind of pods?
Would there be like some sort of like state fair carnival kind of happy pod that might like drive him up the wall?
Happy pod, something just oppressive like Cloud Cuckoo Land as a pod on the Star Lost.
Here's what he would hate but also love is if you had some sort of satirical pod that was basically the machinations of Hollywood within the pod, but in science fiction form. So it's some sort of tyrannical, arbitrarily decided crazy decisions happen every day at random. So he'd love to write that because he hated Hollywood so much, but at the same time it would be all his nightmares at once. And then you throw the Doctor in. And I'm going to say the Pertwee era Doctor because it would match up with the times.
Yeah.
And also he just seems to fit the overall ambiance of the Star Lost in that where they would visit would look much the same.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Man, he hated a lot of stuff, didn't he? Maybe it'd be like I don't know. Did he write any Star Trek episodes, Harlan Ellison?
Yeah, he wrote City on the Edge of Forever, but it got rewritten a lot because originally the person who goes back in time is a drug addict, and they didn't want to have that on TV. But that was what he tried to. Like, the guy is a great writer. We're not crapping on him here. Like, he did hate everything, but he also. Here's another thing: we could have something about Banks because he always insisted, and rightly so, that he should get paid for whatever he does. People want him to do commentaries for free. He's like, no, pay me. And so you have something sort of centered around that where somebody's getting ripped off on this pod, and then the Doctor comes in and goes, "This is terrible. You're ripping off the peasants or the heroes, aka the writers."
I thought maybe they would go back and on this particular pod this week on the Star Lost, they would go into a cheap multicam version of the City on the Edge of Forever.
Yeah, there you go.
And it would be with everything cut out that Harlan Ellison originally put in there. So he'd be angry about the stuff that was cut out of a Star Trek episode. He'd be angry about the Star Lost. And somehow, I don't know, they'd have a character directly read the foreword that he wrote for the Pinnacle Books novelizations.
To children.
To children. And so they mess him up that way. And I don't know, how do you make Harlan Ellison happy is what I like to know. Like, is there enough thing, maybe he's happy being angry. And so you just have to pile all the things in that make him angry. And that'll kind of like Fred Flintstone getting hit on the head an even number of times. The first time he gets amnesia and he gets a hit again, you think that would cause more concussion. No, it causes him to lose his amnesia and he's fine again. So you have to throw enough stuff that Harlan Ellison hates that he'll be happy. And I think that is what our main goal is, to try and make Harlan Ellison happy.
And therefore angry.
And therefore angry at the same time, which is exactly how you will feel when you watch an episode of The Star Lost.
So I think the answer is give him a huge, huge check.
Money.
He'd love that. He'd love that answer.
I think he would love money. Yeah. That or a talking bear.